Antony Loewenstein now, he's the author of the book, The Palestine Laboratory, How Israel Exports the Technology of Occupation Around the World. He joins me live on the line from Sydney. Thanks so much. Big time difference, so I appreciate this. Antony, after those October 7th attacks, I think it's reasonable to say Prime Minister Netanyahu had quite a broad support, both within his own country and coming from abroad. You know, in those initial first few days, to deal with Hamas in a fairly aggressive fashion. Things have changed now. How much support would you say he has, both internally and internationally now?
Well, internally, in fact, it's collapsed. And according to the latest opinion polls, and these polls were pretty much for being done within a week or two of October 7. The latest poll this week found that if there was an election in Israel tomorrow, him and his coalition would fail miserably. They would not win. He would not be prime minister. It's as simple as that. And the likely alternative prime minister is Benny Gantz, who is in the war cabinet. And of course, it's important to note that there is so much attention and interest and almost obsession with Netanyahu around the world, including in the press. But unfortunately, I would say, having reported on this issue for many, many years and being based in Palestine for many years, on the key issues, what happens to Gaza next, what happens to the West Bank, what happens to the occupation, these existential questions for Israel, there is little to no difference between Netanyahu and Gantz and other likely alternatives. Yes, there is a far-right cabinet currently around Netanyahu. That cabinet would probably not contain far-right members if someone like Benny Gantz was in power. But ultimately, on the big questions, Gantz has been a far-right hawk, if you can call it that, on Gaza for years. There's no intention of ending the occupation. There's no intention of stopping settlements. This is what I've often said for years now, and even more so since October 7. There's been a radicalization of Israeli Jewish society. Now, obviously not every Israeli Jew feels this way, but according to the majority of opinion polls, including in the last week, just one poll alone speaks volumes, and I'll finish on this point. 70 to 80% of Israeli Jews in a poll released this week supported the so-called voluntary, but essentially forced relocation of Palestinians from Gaza. That's the reality. So essentially supporting ethnic cleansing. That's a radicalization of a majority of Israeli Jewish population. Netanyahu could fall tomorrow as prime minister. That would make no difference.
Is the difference here humanity? Are we seeing the Israeli public seeing the humanity of what's happening and Netanyahu somehow failing to see that? The impression I get is that his big picture is to remove Hamas, to take full control of Gaza and do whatever he wants to do. And it feels like the public are now looking at the human aspect.
I wish that were the case. I don't mean to be the killjoy here, but the sad reality is, speaking to my Israeli friends, Israeli Jewish friends in Israel, there are, of course, some Israeli Jews who are going online and seeing what's happening in Gaza. Of course, there are. But the vast, vast majority of the Israeli public and media does not cover this. There are no Palestinian voices. There are no voices coming from Gaza. The majority of Israeli public supports the ongoing pursuit of this war. There may be a nuance in tactics. There may be a desire to get the hostages back, which is a totally reasonable and fair enough presumption. But beyond that, there is a desire to continue the war and to try to overthrow Hamas. Now, obviously, at some point, that cost may be seen as far too much. But right now, at least, polls are all indicating that there is a strong desire to continue this war. So I think there is a humanity of the hostages that many Israelis rightly feel like they want to get their family members or people they know home. Totally fair enough. But in the broader sense, the humanity of Palestinians, the ones who are suffering the most, where there's, 25,000, 30,000 Palestinians killed now in the space of 2+ months. These voices are not being heard in Israel. They're not being seen. They're not being heard. And this is the real humanity deficit that is existing in Israel, which existed long before October 7, by the way, but it's accelerated in the last 2 months.
Listening to the thoughts of author Antony Loewenstein. Antony, thanks for your time.
Thank you.